This is Sarah Poff, the multimedia storyteller, and we're here today getting ready for spring. And we have a painting that we're going to paint. We're looking for spring, just like those animals are looking for their first good meal of the season. We're looking for spring to have some different kind of fun than being in the house all winter. All right, we'll get ready here. This is my painting, and I've got my paints all ready for you so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to switch out here and put a paint jacket on. Don't want to get paint on my nice pink jacket. As I told you before, if you've watched some of my shows, if you haven't, then I'll go through this. I just use the cheap canvas board. You can do it on just a regular board of some kind that you might have. You can do it on a stretched canvas. You can do it on masonite. If you do it on masonite and some of those, you're going to want to put a white background to kind of cover up some of the brown. I also just use an assortment of brushes. I mean, you can pick certain ones if you want. However, I just go for what I've got in my container. I use basic paints. So I just use a basic paint. I buy a big one. I was a little bit disappointed the other day when I went to my favorite store to buy them. I wanted a better blue, and this is the biggest size they have. I like to buy the bigger ones and buy red, yellow, blue, which are your primary colors. And then I like to add black, white, and I usually get brown. If I'm going to use a lot of green, I'll go ahead and get green. So we want to go ahead and start with our background. We want to think about where this rabbit is. And then we want to paint blue around, let it dry just a little bit with the blow dryer, and then we're going to start painting in the rabbits and around the area. We'll see what time. We're going to try to get that 1 hour time frame. All right, so I'm going to take this off. So I'm going to kind of think about where's my rabbit going to be. I'm going to kind of draw in just a little bit there. Sometimes I just paint the whole background, the color, and then go back in on top. But since we're doing white, I think it would work out better if we just go ahead. Now, if this concerns you to draw straight on the canvas like this, you can actually just cut out. You know, take a piece of paper, draw it, cut it out, trace it on there. That works too. I've just done this a few times. So, being an elementary art teacher, got kind of used to drawing it on the board. You know, sometimes I do better, sometimes I do worse, but I just keep going. All right, there are my rabbits. Now, I'm going to take just a beat-up brush because I'm going to want to I want it to be a little bit textured, and I have blue and white. Now, to save paint, to make it more like I want, I always start by putting just a little bit. You want to pull the darker color just lightly into the light color. I like to do what I call double dip, so I've got two different ones there. Now, see, that's even darker than I want, so I'm going to bring some more white in. Now, I don't want this to be real heavy. I want this to be a thin coat. It's kind of like doing a color sheet. You're wanting it to be covered. If you want and you have time and you want to go back and you want to do and add some more of the other end, that would be a painting, sure, that's fine. But we want to get a nice looking painting in our 1 hour time frame. That's what we're trying to do. All right, paint, 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 paint. I sure do like to paint. Paint, 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 paint. I sure do like to paint. So I'm going to go down here. I want to go far enough that that grass is going to come on top of that. I'm not going to worry about going all the way down, The grass will take care of some of it. You could do, if you have a sponge of some kind, you could do a sponge. You could also, sometimes I'll look for a stiff brush, one that maybe the granddaughters have had too much fun with and didn't get them all painted out if I wanted to do like this. I mean, you could get a stenciling brush. I have, somewhere in this, there's a stenciling brush. Ah, right there it is. You could get something like this if you wanted. But I've tried to make it so that you don't have to have a lot of supplies. You know, I want you to just experiment with painting, to have fun with it. I am so ready for spring this year. I've got my garden. I tried something new. I covered it with cardboard. Don't tell my neighbors to look very close. I covered it with cardboard because last year those little plants that I tilled it all under, and all these plants grew up. And I was like, no, I don't want that this year. So I'm hoping for some beautiful flowers like we're going to see in my garden, to keep the bugs off so I don't have to use many pesticides. And then I'm looking for more fruits and vegetables than I had last year. I've just about gone through all those little containers in my freezer. Oh my, I had a lot of tomatoes and green beans put up. It sure does taste good when it's out of your own garden. Well, some of them are out of the son-in-law's garden. He didn't have time to process all his, so I got to go out and he has a huge garden out on his land. So what's your favorite flower to grow, garden item in your garden? Do you bring in and save seeds from year to year? Do you maybe just go buy them? Sometimes it's just easiest to go buy them. I've just noticed that the prices had gone up and I decided I'd start saving my own seeds. So that's what I did last fall. So sometimes I get so anxious for spring to come. We've had that long winter, and it's just nice to have some time. Okay, just filling of brushes, see what I've got here. And you can turn a brush on its sides, and that'll help. Like one that's a flat one like that, you can turn it on its side if you're trying to make a straight line around there. Okay, there we go. See, I'm pulling some of the paint back over from here. So I'm wanting to get this covered. I'm wanting to have a light coat so that we can go faster on this. Let me see about a little bit of water here. I don't like to use much, but a little bit helps. Right this minute, I don't see what I did with my little container, but I'll just drop a little bit there, and that'll make this paint go a little smoother. You don't want a lot, you just want a little bit. Paint, paint, paint. Paint, 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 I sure do like to paint. You know, I used to sing a silly little song like that in my classroom. I taught elementary art in Blue Springs School District for many years, and I was always trying to keep, especially the little guys, going. You know, those kindergartners and first graders, sometimes they have a mind of their own about how to get it done really quick, and then they don't have all the white spots colored in that they're supposed to. So I would just sing little silly songs trying to get them to keep going. It worked. It worked. Then there's that one little kindergarten boy one year at the end of the year. He's like, "Oh, Mrs. Poff, I am so sorry. You've had to be the art teacher all year long. You sing to us all the time and we like it. And you had to be the art teacher." And I just smiled inside. I said, "Well, it's okay. I'm not really good at music," because he didn't understand that I was trying to do it to keep him going, not because I liked music that much. I can't sing on key. I just keep trying. Well, and that's what you do with whatever it is in life, you know. You just keep going, you keep trying, you keep making it happen. I'm sure there's other people out there that can paint better than I can, that can show you how better than I can, but I just keep trying. I just keep encouraging you to try. Just keep trying. You can put the basics in here, and then if you want to think about some of the things or read about what it takes to make it a little more rounded, to make it a little more lifelike, you can do that. Or if you like it like it is, you can just leave it like this. I envision having a spot in the house where you could hang up several paintings about this size, and then each season change them out. And they're all painted by you or someone in your family. Actually, that's how my house is. I don't really put up artwork in my house that's not painted by somebody or made by somebody in my family. My daughter's a really good photographer, and I have, other paintings from other people in the family. Now the grandgirls are adding their little touch to it. So it's all about, what makes you happy at your home. And that's what makes me happy at my home, is being able to see my artwork that my mother made, and and that my kids make, and it is just fun. I like items on my wall that tell a story. Something having to do with our family usually, an experience we've had, something we've done. And this one makes me think of, as a child, in the spring, have you ever traced a rabbit? In the spring, the rabbits will start hatching out and the little babies will start running across your yard. That happened to me in Blue Springs a number of times, and as a kid, I remember chasing them, and then I watched my children chase them, and now I watch the granddaughters chase them across the yard. The signs of spring. Signs of spring. Okay, so I am still doing what I was telling you about earlier. I'm still like double dipping. I want less blue than I do white. If I get too much blue, then I go back and try to get a little more white. I like a modelly color in the background. You could choose something different if you wanted. You could choose a different color if you wanted. Maybe you want it to be a little more on the yellow or brighter side there. It could be a dark day. That's your choice. Maybe it's getting ready to rain and those flowers are going to grow a lot more. What is that? April showers bring May flowers. All right. Well, I kind of think that's how I'm going to leave that background. I'm going to put just a teeny bit more maybe blue around here. I'm going to get the old trusty blow dryer out here just in a second. Now, the blow dryer makes lots of noise, so it's going to make lots of noise for just a little bit, and then we'll get busy on the next part. The good thing about using these canvas boards and the fact that we can buy these so cheap right now at some of those stores, the kids can do it. You know, the kids can do it, and it's not like you're going to a great big expense. You know, probably the amount of paint that I put on my plate right here, as long as you control the paint, if you have children in your life, that'd be easy for them to just go ahead and paint it with you, and that way you could actually have a little scene. I have some rabbits and, you know, for each season, some little wooden figures that I put in my window. And it was fun last Christmas when I got it out that the granddaughter looked at it and she's like, well, mine doesn't look very good. Well, I said, well, you were only 2 when you drew on there. And so we flipped it on the other side. And so this past year she decided that she knew a little bit more and she was going to do some more with it. All right, so now we're going to go and do the green. Let's do the white. We're going to do the white, and then we'll do the green. All right, so I'm going to need to find me a new brush. Now, I just leave those there, especially, you know, if you're using it with children or even other people. If there's a bunch. You want to save the time, so just kind of put those brushes to the side unless you're very limited with brushes. And then you're going to come back over and find another brush. Probably ought to make sure that it's clean. Sometimes other people use my brushes and they're not necessarily clean, so I want to make sure that I check that. Okay. And even though this is white, I still want to paint it white so that it has that paint look. Now, I tricked myself. I thought there was white there. That's the dried up paint. Now, I like to keep my dried up paint. I use a Corel plate. This is a Corel plate. I've used it before. And then what I do is after it's built up on there, I build it up, and then I put a little water on the plate, and I kind of start let it kind of buckles up, and then I start peeling it off. This is one that I recently pulled off of my Corel plate. So now I have me an extra artwork. So just something to think about if you like doing acrylic paint and put yours on something like that could be pulled off. Paper plates work good too, because you could just toss those. So I'm just going to paint the whole thing in white here, the space that I left. I might go around the tail to begin with so that I can, because I drew that on there and I can kind of see. Since I'm in a standing position, it's a little bit harder for me to paint as straight as if I were sitting down. I'm so glad that we're in a culture now of times that we can have fun paintings like this, that we don't have to think we have to know so much about art. You know, we don't have to like know everything before we start doing it. That wasn't so in my earlier time. Okay, it looks like I forgot, like right in here, this should be blue. So I'm just going very carefully around, trying to use the edge of the brush. You could outline it. Part of this is what are your painting skills? And you can also go back later and outline it with a Sharpie if you wanted. I've been known to outline my paintings with Sharpies. I've been known to outline them with pencils because it adds just a little bit of color there without adding a whole lot. It might turn it into a mixed medium, we might have to say, but it's all right. It's your painting. You know, you make the decision. I know that, if you do it with children, that they have more skills and they can stay better in line if you let them have something like that. Now, if you give them a great old big Sharpie, they're going to make big lines. And you're going to want to make sure that the acrylic is like totally dry before you use it. You want to do the really fine line Sharpie. So a pencil or even a black colored pencil, those work out nice too, just to add a little bit of that shaping and rounding of the figures. Okay. Now I'm going to get a really little brush. Okay, here's one right here. Sometimes, I was going to show you, let's see, sometimes if I've got one that's rubbed off on the edges, I can use that if I don't have one that's as small as I want. So see, I've almost got too much there. I want just real light, real light. Now I can go and do that around the edges here. I especially want around the edge here. I want just a little bit. I'm going to dip in the white, barely dip into brown. And if you're concerned that you might have put too much paint on it, you can bring a paper towel or a piece of paper and touch your paintbrush. It's better to do that than to have a whole bunch of the other color that you don't really want on there. I'll see, I gotta think. I have to think a lot more when I do those kinds of things. I have to think. So I can't like talk as much. I can't talk as much. You see what I'm doing? I'm putting that there. Then I'm going back in and adding a little more white because I don't want this to be a lot. I want it to just be a subtle thing, you know, like they're standing together. And then remember what the old art professor says, stand up and stand away from your painting so you know what it looks like from somebody else. So where are you going to hang this in your house? How far back are you going to be from it? You want to capture someone's attention. You want to draw them in to your painting to come look and see what it is that you've done. Sometimes you need to just clean it off. Now with his tail, we can do this. Just do a little, make it a little textured, clumpy there. Because we think about a cotton, when we make projects with the children, we do the cotton balls for the tails. Okay, so I'm going to just paint it in the first time. Now see, I almost covered up all the brown there, so I may want to go back and put just a little bit more brown in a couple of places. Such a delicate balance between doing enough and doing too much. See, I keep not picking up enough. Now see, we want to get it where it's a painting that you feel is completed in this hour. And then if you're one of those people that has more skills and would like to go back after it kind of dries, and that's the cool thing about acrylic. I mean, you can do this in watercolor, you can do it in oils, you can do it in tempera. The acrylic is the easiest to go back on top of and do. I was listening to a show just this week about some of the different old masters and how they did egg paints. It even had some of their recipes, and I was like, that would be fun to try. Fun to try just a few recipes. I always like to experiment with something new, and I'm always trying something new out. Okay. Yeah. Now, when I'm reaching clear over like that, I'm going to put this little pinky down, and I'm going to prop it like that, and that's going to be kind of my guide. Some people use a ruler or some other kind of straight edge, and they hold it and do that. You certainly could, but my pinky's just always available. He's just there. And if this wasn't on screen, I would probably just turn the painting around. It's probably what I would do. Because you want to get it in a place that you feel that you can make a steady line in. Not that you can't repaint. You can repaint. But it's more efficient if you can do it the first time. Oops, see there, I got too much brown. It is really nice that it was able to blow dry, and it's pretty dry. You know, this is really dry. I haven't touched anything that was wet since I've had my hand on there. So that's the good thing about doing it thin, having access to a blow dryer. I can still remember when those came to be. I was so glad because I no longer had to sit underneath that old crazy hairdryer for an hour and to stay still. My mother used to get on to me all the time. I would, she would spend all this time rolling my hair, and I have this thick hair. Even to this day, I still have that thick hair. And she would then stick me under that dryer, and I had to stay stationary. No, I wasn't very good at that. I'm not a stationary person. My sister had this nice curly hair, but I'm not sure she liked it. You know, sometimes it's hard for us to be satisfied with what we do have. Oh. We see what someone else has and what they look like, and we're like, oh, well, I'd like to be like that. The older I get, the more I just kind of accept me. This is how I am. This is how I am. I have my own style.
Can we just pause really quickly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you might just address with the audience that we changed the settings in case you, I might be able to fix it in editing, but if not, they might not be able to see some of that work. So you might
Or
just
some of the brown that I put in there. Okay.
You might just quickly kind of touch base on
Okay.
what you did with
Okay.
And just acknowledge that, you know, we realize that he might not have been able to see this, so.
Okay.
But yeah, you're good to do that now.
Am I going?
Yep.
Okay. So we've taken just a moment here to kind of adjust the camera settings because we're not sure if you can see these lines when I was putting the brown in there and putting white on top of it because it's so white here. So what I did is I went around and I did brown here where the rabbits come together, and then on the edges of the rabbits all the way around I added a little brown and then added white on top of it. It gives it that rounded effect. So you might you might have a little bit of trouble with that. We're trying to like work on adjusting that. Okay, but we can see it now for sure, my tech guy says. So that's what I was doing there, is trying to just give you a little more dimension in it. And then sometimes I do go back with a pencil. I do go back with a Sharpie, the fine line Sharpie like this. You might get a brown instead of a black. A pencil works really great, but the colored pencil that's a black or brown also works nicely. Now I was talking about the paintbrush that, you know, if you don't have a really small point, sometimes you can cut one. Maybe you've got one's a little stiff, you can cut one. I find out that the kids scrub theirs because they don't take as good care of them. So when I'm working with my grandgirls or when I was working in the classroom with kids, and then that actually has a nice little, I'll show you, it has a nice little point to it. Let's see if I just do like here. You can do real small with it that way. And so that's just a cheap way to have an additional small brush there. Now I do need to go back on that. Yeah, you'll be able to see that, won't you now? That's what happens when you go back. You have to add a little more, a little more, a little more. All right. Well, hopefully that helps with the brown being added on there. You know, you could add some personal touches sometimes to this if you have some kind of decor in your house and you wanted to add across here a little bow around it. We think about rabbits, you know, that are pet rabbits, and then we put ribbon around them sometimes. All right, I want to start on the grass and the stems of the flowers. Okay, so I want a paintbrush that I can just take and I want to go like this. I want to just, you know, you might even practice, because sometimes I think that's a hard thing to do. It's just, you know, taking it and just loading it with paint. And don't stop. Even if it runs out of paint, don't stop. Just keep going. So I've got that one picked out that I'm going to do that with. I'm going to put just a little bit of brown at the bottom down here, because I want a little bit of brown. I'm going to choose a household brush for that. I don't want a lot of brown. I'm just going to because I want it to kind of fill in with the grass on top of it. But sometimes it helps to have just a little bit already there in case we don't get everything quite done. You might have a grass that comes, or the stems that come across there, and they don't quite cover it up. Especially go for coloring it in there at the bottom. Then I'm just gonna pull my brush up. It still has a little bit in it. Okay. Now, let's see, I'll get my blow dryer for just a second. It doesn't take long because I didn't make that paint very thick. All right, so remember what I said, I'm going to take this and I'm going to just do long lines. And I'm wanting to make it look like the rabbits are peeking through. They're just on the other side and we're peeking into where they are looking. Now you can do straight green. This is what mine's going to look like if I do straight green. So I might want to add some brown to it. So see how I did that? I just went and then I came up on top of it. Gonna add a little water to it. Make it flow just a little better. Now the challenge here is to get it where it's not too dry, not too wet. Not too dry, not too wet. If it's too wet, it flows across there. If it's too dry, you have to go over it multiple times and it doesn't look quite as smooth. And I'm just going to go across with a row of it, and then I'm going to come back and add some more. Now I'm using more water than I usually do. I think it's the humidity's a little dry in here. Plus the canvas is really dry. You might, another thing you could try is if you wanted to spray your canvas with a little water. Just be careful when you first go to put paint on it so you know how that paint is going to flow. So now this time I dipped it into brown, because I want to be able to distinguish between what I put on there first, what I'm coming back in with. So sometimes things like this take a little more concentration. And of course you can take and pause the video. I need to go straight through with mine, but you could pause the video and then you could come back to it later if you get tired of this step and your hand needs maybe a little rest. Sometimes I just shake them out. Especially if you're someone who doesn't paint as often, that happens. What do I mean? It can happen to me too. Sometimes one of my favorite arts to do is to carve. And I just can't stay with it very long because my hand starts cramping. So that's one of those on my to-do list. Find more time to carve. Do you have a favorite art? You might put it down in the comments on the YouTube post. I have so many I can't name them. I just like to do art, 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 and some more art, and some more art. I always like to teach a variety of art in my classroom at school because I didn't know what art they might really like when they were older. I wanted them to find the art they liked because it's about, you know, the one that appeals to you. It doesn't matter what I like. And there's so many types, so many types. And we live in a world that it's so easy to get the supplies. Compared to the 60s, when I was growing up, yeah, supplies are so easy to come by. My mom always did a lot with us, but it was a lot of nature crafts and plaster crafts and stuff like that because there wasn't much of the other available. The market's changed on that. And you have a lot of nice stores that carry arts and crafts supplies. And then, of course, you still have your fine art stores. They're out there. I remember when I moved to the Kansas City area, I learned about some of those, and it was like, wow. I walked in, I was like, whoa, look at all this cool stuff. It's kind of like how I felt about the library the first time I walked into Mid-Continent in Blue Springs. This is where I was living at the time, and I went, oh my God, gee, I didn't know they had candy stores with books in it. Because that's what it felt like to me. It felt like I was in a candy store, and I had so many different kinds of candy, I couldn't, like, keep from picking them all up. The Blue Springs Library was, oh, I don't know. This is before they did the redo. I bet you that it was a fourth of that library was what my library was when I was a kid. We had such a little library. We're so lucky to have Mid-Continent in our life. They offer so many different kinds of things. And each branch is specialized. I've been to most of the branches, presented programs in most of the branches, and it's just so much fun to see the differences and how they bring it to the plate. I went to one not too long ago and they had hello written in a lot of different languages, and that was really fun. And I happened to be doing a Japanese program, and the man pointed up there and he's like, and that's hello in Japanese. I was like, oh, how cool. So I had to get a picture of myself in my kimono in front of that sign. Trying to get it all painted in down there. Takes a little concentration. And then I'm going to have to use the blow dryer a bit and try to get it blown dry enough that we can then add some flowers to it. Now there's lots of different ways that you can add flowers. You can, of course, use a paintbrush. You can use it on its side. You can find one that's a little bit bigger, rounder, and do that. You can do a sponge. One of my favorite ways to do it is to use a pencil, the eraser of a pencil. Try to find a pencil eraser that hasn't been rounded off, and that makes a nice one. The craft stores around sell different kinds of sponges. If you should, desire to have something like that and you don't already have your supplies, I usually try to keep some of those on hand. Okay, let's see. We're getting there. Well, we're getting there. Some of these aren't as tall as, we might bring up a few that are a little taller. Remember to stand back from your painting, across the room if you can. Have your neighbor hold it up unless there's dripping paint on it. You don't want to do it if there's dripping paint. Maybe you want to have a paint party. Get together and have a paint party. If you do that, maybe write it in the comments so we'll know that you enjoyed doing this painting along with some of your friends. All right, I'm going to get my blow dryer out and see if we can get this dried up. So now to do the flowers, you could do just a brush like this. You could do a sponge. These are available at some of the arts and crafts stores. You can do the pencil eraser like we said. This one is worn off, but I think it will do fine. Let's see what happens if I do, I'll just do one of these red. See, that works fine. And if it doesn't like print the whole thing, you know, we don't always see the whole piece, the whole circle of the flower, the whole petal of the flower. And so we're kind of imitating what nature is there, that we can see only a part of it from the angle we are. And we know our brain compensates for the fact that we know the rest is there. All right. So just think about what kind of tools you have around your house that might work. There's not a right way or a wrong way. This might be one of those, I know I've seen some, you'd have to make sure you cut it really small and we're really careful with it, but you might be able to do bubble wrap with something like that on these up here. Okay, I think I better, sometimes you gotta wipe it off because it gets to be blotchier. So we're stamping, so stamp, 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 stamp. I sure do like to stamp. If you want it to be a little fancier in there, you could add a little, you could go back and add a little white to it. We'll do that if we have time. I want to put some other kind of flowers on there. So I want to be a little picky with what kind of brush. I think I'm going to choose this one because I think I can just print this brush, the side of it. I can lay the side of it on there. So I don't often do this, but I'm going to rinse this one out because I think it fits the needs I need for making those flowers. And I might need to go back with my blow dryer. I got the stems done up here, but there's still some spots. However, I probably could just, I think there's a spot there and a few lower. I can start in here. I think we're okay. Okay, now before I put that on the canvas though, I'm gonna try my brush out, make sure I got all the green out of there. It looks good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to print the side of the brush. So I'm gonna do like this. See how nice a little flower that can be? I'm going to add a little center to it here in a bit. There's so many different ways to do it. And I like some of the tricks I've learned about doing the back painting. That's certainly not how the professors taught it. But it sure does speed up what you can do and how long it takes to do it. Gives you more time for more fun, I think. And as you know, if you followed me on any of my others, I'm not quite traditional here. But I read a book about somebody that wasn't an art teacher who taught her niece how to draw and paint. And so sometimes I use some of the techniques that she taught, coming from the non-art world. And I've been listening to these shows that evaluate the old masters. And when you get in there to the stories, sometimes you hear a little more about the fact that they did some things that in their paintings that we might not consider the traditional way of doing it. And I was like, whoa, really? That's not how I learned about them. But these are people who've gone back and researched more about those artists. So here I am still just, using the side of my brush. I do have to concentrate a little more when I'm doing that. Okay. Now I did not put yellow out. Let me get a little yellow. I think I like the centers to be yellow. You want to put less paint than you think you'll use. That's what you ought to do, and then that way you won't waste as much on the other end. I always try to start by making sure that brush is clean. And you see it kind of picked up a little bit of the green underneath, which, we think about the flowers having a little green there in the middle too sometimes, especially as they're budding out. Okay. Now I want to show you how to make these that look tulip-like. And then we'll be kind of wrapping down on this, I think. Okay, so what I did is I painted them pink. I painted that area pink. And then I went back with just a little bit of white in it. So I'm going to bring a little bit of red over to my white. I want to bring the stronger color into the less intense color. And just a little bit, because otherwise you can mix up a lot of paint that you end up not using. Whereas I can paint with this all day long and still not have them all mixed together. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and find some places. And I'm going to make that shape tulip-like. The art professor I had is, said just kind of get it close to what it should be. The mind kind of takes over and tells you what that should be. So that's kind of what we're doing here. If you would like to make it more like a tulip, sure. You're welcome to do that. This is your painting. I want you to enjoy this process. A lot of times I will set my paintings out on my piano, which is in the edge of my kitchen, and as I come and go, I look at it. I look at that painting and then try to see if it's balanced. This is kind of hard when you're painting it and you're on top of it, kind of. You don't get it as balanced as when you step back, because remember, your job as an artist is to draw people in and make them want to keep looking. So you're going to draw them in and make them want to keep looking. I think I'm going to get the granddaughters to make each of the granddaughters to make one and put on the side of mine and hang up in my house. I think Grandma may have to say, okay, after school on Wednesday, this is what we're doing. Sometimes they have their own agenda. When your grandma's the art teacher, you just have a lot of art in your life. The other kids, I teach some private lessons on the side, and the other kids who come to my house, they just want to stay and do art. My grandkids are going, well, I've already had quite a bit of art. I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm going to get a little brush. Add a little bit of white. I'm going to go back. I want to make sure these feel like that they are on a stem. That they're not just loose hanging out there. Well, you see what I'm doing? I'm holding my finger up. Holding the finger up. Okay. Now we're just getting really close to the end of our time. But what I did to kind of unify the design, because like this one has 3 different types of flowers. So I just went in there and did some dots of red, like there were some small little flowers growing in the background. So let's do that, because to me right now, it needs something to unify the design. So I'm just going to do a few little dots. Don't forget to sign your paintings. Sometimes I'm bad about that. like I said, I was watching some shows about learning about some of the masters. You know, some of them never painted, never signed their paintings. And then when you go to try to prove who did it, it's kind of hard. But just, you know, our family might enjoy that someday if these are still around. They'll go, oh, well, Mama painted that when I was 8 years old. Looky there. I think I want that in my house. Or if your children are doing it, it's especially fun to watch how they progress. And who knows, if you happen to become famous someday, it'll be worth more money if you've signed it. That's just always my joke. All right. Well, let's see. Here's the original. You can see right there where I put my name. And here's the one we just finished. Now, you could add some little flowers in there. You know, this one might call for just a couple of more of the white ones. Down here, I think. These are gonna have just a blush of pink. When I do these, I make them similar, but I don't always make them exactly the same as the others. Okay, and so sometimes you get a little more than you thought. Just kind of spread it out. All right. A little green in the center, and I think we're going to call this a wrap. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed the process today and that I've given you a way that you don't have to have a lot of supplies to make art. You don't have to be someone who already knows how to paint. You can just paint on your own and have lots of fun. Remember that you can go back if you want to and paint additionally on your painting. If you want to change something up later, you can take that Sharpie, the pencil, or other tools like that and draw on top if you would like to. All right. Thank you for joining me here at Mid-Continent Public Library and doing my painting with me. This is Sarah Poff, the Multimedia Storyteller.